couple weeks, and
sometimes the body just tells us, hey, you got to pay attention and do something. Like for me, I ended up getting some battery of tests because I wasn't ready to hang up my running shoes quite yet. At 58, I think I've got some good race miles left in me. But my results weren't showing that. But anyway, the test results, well, my running results weren't showing that I had miles left in me, but my test results showed really low iron levels. So I got a series of transfusions on that. But then the real issue was the severe adrenal fatigue. And for people who may not be aware, the adrenals are glands that sit above the kidneys, and their only function is to produce and put cortisol into the body. And when you think of cortisol, it's like thinking of cholesterol. You think, well, cholesterol is bad. Well, no, cholesterol is in the cell lining of every cell. If you didn't have cholesterol, you'd be just a lump of jelly. So you need it, but the right kinds of, because the body actually produces cholesterol. You don't need outside sources of cholesterol. Your body makes it. But cortisol is the same thing, but we think of it as a bad thing because it's also known as the stress hormone. So what happens, here's normal levels, and if your adrenals are pumping in too much cortisol, your levels go up above normal. Now, when it goes above normal, the body has its natural thing that it will do. Instead of letting it go on forever, the adrenals actually start shutting down, which forces the adrenals to produce less, and then eventually you're back to normal. But the problem is, if you keep stressing your body, physical stress and even emotional stress, eventually the adrenals are producing so little that your cortisol level drops below normal. And that's what's dangerous. And that's where mine was at. I'd already gone to the high, and that was already going to the low end, and pretty much, almost complete adrenal shutdown. And that was just my body saying, you can't do this. You can't do this anymore. And so it forced me to rest. And the blessing, as much as it's a curse, but the blessing of the pandemic, there were no races. Even if I wanted to race, the races every race was canceled. And even the one that I was really looking forward to, and because I was forced to get 6 months of rest and train properly, I was really looking forward to Badwater. And of course, we didn't know right up until, and then 2 weeks before, yes, the race is on. And then 3 days later, the race is off.
Well, the earthquake didn't help.
That didn't help. And then,
if you don't know, there was an earthquake. They announced that the race was on, and like the very next day at 10 in the morning, we had a 6.0 earthquake in Lone Pine, which is mile 122 of Badwater. So you really couldn't be more.
And there were landslides and rocks were in the road.
Yeah, the road was closed. Speaking of cortisol, it's interesting that often, I'm known as this big guy, and I've done everything under the sun, and I'm 250 usually, and I can get down to like 225 if I start myself vegan diet or whatever. But a lot of people look, and doctors look at that I have too high of cortisol levels. In fact, there's a syndrome called Cushing syndrome, and you have a moon face and a big barrel gut, and so I probably am borderline on that, where I'm pumping out too much, but I haven't hit yours where I went to, crashed, completely. So you basically just took some time off and you weren't doing much. And I'm sure that, and it's, as everybody, it's affected your businesses and stuff. And